Here for a lesson?
This is a teaching moment.
May we learn much together.
Okay, well, the moment that y'all have been waiting for, it is time for us to get into the lore behind United in Stormwind.
All right. So, this, unlike some of our previous ones, like especially when we did Outland, we had to go way, way back towards like the birth of a world and whatnot. We don't have to do that this time, because we're just talking about the birth of the human civilization. So, you know, a few thousand years, not millions of millions. It's an improvement. But so basically, and I will give the heads up that there are going to be multiple points here where we could branch off on tangents into many other closely knit stories here. I will attempt to keep this as streamlined as possible. If you guys have clarifying questions, go ahead and ask, but know that you may add an undisclosed amount of time depending on the answer. So basically, the origin of humans is its own story, but all you need to know is that they were essentially the smaller, more weakened descendants of these big, huge Viking-like beings called Vikruul. I know they slightly changed the word Viking, who settled in this area in what would become known later on as the Eastern Kingdoms. And humans were, like I said, they were much smaller, they were weaker, but they had an incredible drive to survive, amazing survival instincts, and they branched off into many numerous tribes. But they had a little problem, and that problem was trolls. The Amani Trolls in particular. If you look at our little map here, which is from the Chronicle book, it mentions the Amani Empire in this huge swath right above that blue area. So yeah, the Amani were one of the major troll types, and they had, over the centuries, been getting more and more aggressive against the human tribes. And so eventually, a warlord of one of these tribes named Thoradane, sorry, I mix up my pronunciations occasionally and need to double check myself. But he realized that humanity needed to unite if it was going to survive against the trolls. And so he went, and through a combination of clever politics and sometimes having to outright conquer, he managed to unite the tribes. He was actually a very fair ruler and everything, and built the Empire of Erethdor, with his capital city as the fortress of Strom. And that lasted for a really long time, but over time, this people began to form other cities that gradually became their own independent city-states, and then their own independent kingdoms. And it was kind of like they were all playing rounds of Sid Meier's Civilization, basically. And so eventually the core kingdom of Erethdor lost its influence, and there became many broken off kingdoms. And we have our another map here where you can see several of those kingdoms along with other areas. You may recognize a couple names. So we have places like the island of Kultiris, we have the nation of Gilneas, we have the large northern kingdom of Lordaeron, and all of those are areas that became specialized in one thing or another, like having a great navy or being a religious center or whatnot. But what happened was that there were still a whole bunch of noble families that were in the original capital that was just crumbling to dust. And so they were like, okay, what are we going to do? Some of them went north to the Kingdom of Lordaeron, but others decided to go down south to an untouched land and found a new kingdom, and that became the Kingdom of Stormwind.
There it is.
was focused in a very lush area, had a natural protection with cliffs around it, a natural harbor, and just really good lush forests and farmland all around. It was really a good place to settle a new kingdom. And so that is how Stormwind was initially founded, and how it relatively peaceful existence for a kingdom for a decent amount of time, a few centuries and whatnot. You have your typical kingdom political struggles and all of that, but overall, nothing unusual was happening until they had to face an enemy about 75 years before the first Warcraft game starts. I'll give you guys 3 guesses as to not you, Nate, because you know what it is. Hydra and Chief, I'll give you guys 3 guesses as to what this terrifying enemy was that threatens Stormwind.
I mean, the Horde?
Horde wasn't here yet.
Okay.
This is before the Horde.
Before the Horde.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, boars.
Closer than you think. Not boars and not quill boars. Quill boars are over on another continent. But
Hydralisks.
It was Zerg. It was the Zerg that came.
Nope. It was Gnolls.
Oh, I was not gonna get.
I should have known it.
That's great.
Yep. And so, yes, the Gnolls, these hyena-looking creatures, had always been pests, but they happened to get one of those random great leaders that comes along that happens to have a very strategic mind about things, and this guy was named Pack Lord Garfang, and he united the Gnolls together, and they started becoming a real threat towards Stormwind. They were just sacking all of the farmland around, creating a big problem for the outlying civilians, and so everybody retreated into the city of Stormwind for protection. Then they started attacking the city of Stormwind too, and it took the Great King, whose name was King Varian Wrynn. So that last name might sound familiar to you guys. This is Varian's grandfather, Anduin's great-grandfather, and he came up with some pretty clever strategies to defeat the Gnolls, largely boiling down to tricking them into making another full assault on the city. But it turns out that Gnolls are pretty cowardly creatures, and so the leader actually hung back in his own camp, because he's not going to risk his life actually attacking the city. He's just going to send his minions to do it. So the king got him to commit all his forces to the big assault, while he and his guards snuck around and eliminated the Pack Lord and his bodyguards. And without that strong leader, they just all were disorganized again. And that was the end of the Gnoll Wars. But that was kind of the start. By the way, this is the same species as Khadgar, but Khadgar wasn't around yet. He was a different Gnoll who caused problems later on, but this is his same species here. So, now we have the first 4 Wrynn kings that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, should we take a look at the city itself, like of all the statues and stuff, or do you want to do that later?
The statues come in much later in the story.
Okay,
we still
cool.
have other stuff to talk about first.
All right, cool. Just cue me when it's time, and I'll pull that up.
Sure thing. But yeah, you. Let me check. I have to check our listing right here. Okay, so you can go to the next slide area. Yeah, so the next Rin that we're talking about was King Lane Rin, the son of the previous king, of course, and he had a different problem. Not Gnolls this time, but trolls. And not the Amani Trolls either that were up in the north that the humans had united in the first place. No,
we
these...
have internet trolls.
No, I'm sure those will be the threat like 50 expansions from now. But no, these were the Southern Forest Gurubashi trolls. I'm sure that name might ring some bells for you guys.
Berserker.
Gurubashi Berserkers, Gurubashi Chickens. They had a pretty strong place in Rastakhan's Rumble. Did lots of troll tribes. There's lots of troll tribes, but these are the two ones that mainly concerned with Amani in the north and Gurubashi. They're the fierce jungle trolls in the south. And they had been causing some trouble because if you may have noticed back on our map of the kingdoms, they're just south of Stormwind. So as Stormwind kept expanding into outlying settlements and whatnot, they're kind of intruding on the trolls' territory. And so there's a lot of struggles with that sort of stuff. But again, they kept increasing the aggression a bit more and a bit more. King Barathen wanted to keep things non-aggressive. He's just like, okay, we're going to strengthen our guards here. We are going to make sure that all our civilians are better protected, but we're not going to assault them. His son, Prince Llane, disagreed. He thought, we need to go in and show these trolls who's boss. And he had two friends who are also in Hearthstone here. One of them is the guy that you know as the party man from Karazhan, Medivh, and the other is Stormwind's warrior legendary, Anduin Lothar. The three of these guys were the best of buds from the time that they were kids. Medivh was the son of the court conjurer, Nilasaran, who you may remember as you fight his ghost in the Karazhan adventure. And then the three of them were just really good buddies, and they decided to go out on a secret undercover mission together to strike at the Gurubashi trolls without the king knowing about it. Because their logic was, hey, you know what? Come on here, Llane, you're literally the king's son. And we're all really close to him. So if anyone can get away with disobeying his non-aggression order without actually facing consequences, it's us! So how about the three of us just go and sneak into the troll, the heart of the troll empire here, and we'll just destroy them, just the three of us, and prevent them from attacking, and then we'll just go with the idea that it is easier to ask forgiveness than to obtain permission, and everything will be great. Didn't quite work out that way.
Oh, no.
What they did, they got captured by the trolls.
Whoops.
And Medivh ended up being able to free them with his powerful magic, kind of accidentally tapping into this dark spirit of Sargeras, the demon lord, who had possessed him since his conception, which is a whole other story that we can talk about another time, perhaps. But anyway, like he had to do this complete uncontrolled burst of power that annihilated all the trolls around, and they managed to get away. But all that did was rally and literally unite every other troll in the area to go and attack Stormwind. They literally make things worse. Yeah, and so our image right here was because we have all of the trolls who are attacking the city. Medivh had to go Super Saiyan again and just completely unleash his full power, and he just annihilated them with fire spells, frost spells, arcane spells. He used 3 spell tribes there. It almost is like he was working to complete the new mage quest line.
Does Medivh have to take like a really long nap after he goes Super Saiyan?
That depends. At this point, his powers were still. He was just learning to tap into them and was very afraid of the uncontrolled. It took a desperate situation like this for him to just unleash everything. Actually, when his powers first emerged on his 14th birthday, he went into a coma for many years from the shock of it.
Very long nap.
Yes. That was just a one-time thing. He gradually obtained more control over his powers. But yeah, that was the thing. So this was known as, surprise, surprise, the Gurubashi Wars. These are pretty easy to remember names. You fight the Gnolls, you call them the Gnoll Wars. You fight the Gurubashi, you call them the Gurubashi Wars. And so, we have a question. Shmoopy, was he influenced by his demonic possession? Yes, that is correct. Again, we won't go too much into that, but he kind of discovered to his horror that as he was fighting against the trolls, he was making their deaths as excruciating as possible, and he was enjoying it. He was very horrified to realize how much he was enjoying torturing them to death with arcane fire and whatnot. So, yeah, that sort of thing will happen when you're unknowingly possessed by the Lord of all demons. But yeah, so that was the Gurubashi Wars right there, and but then what happened, unfortunately, was the king died in the fight, and Lane became the new king, and he had so much guilt, so much like survivor's guilt, and like because they were literally like, we caused this, and no one else knew. They were like, hooray, Medivh saved Stormwind, but no one knew that we actually kind of doomed Stormwind too. And so they just kind of decided to, just try to make up for it by being responsible as they grew up to protect the city. Medivh went off to go and try to learn to control his powers and move into Karazhan with his mom. And Llane became the new king, and Anduin Lothar ended up becoming a high-ranking general in the Stormwind military. And that sets everything up for the Dark Portal, and now we get the Horde coming in. Which, again, how they got here is an entire other story, but it's enough to know that basically what happened was Sargeras, possessing Medivh, made contact with Gul'dan over with the orcs, and together they pooled their power to create the Dark Portal as a way to bridge the worlds so the orcs could come over and conquer Azeroth for the demonic Burning Legion. It's a simple 3-step process. Establish contact, make portal, bring an invading army. It's easy.
Profit.
Yeah, profit, exactly. So, we've gone through quite a bit. Does anyone have any clarifying questions before we move on to this next League of the Story?
Not that wouldn't go down a far longer tangent than we would probably have time for, because we want to learn a little bit more about Stormwind than the tangents that I would take us on.
That's true. Your tangents could result in more episodes with me on them. We'll see how all that works. Okay, so yeah, we can move on to our next slide here, Nate.
Okay, so I've got Khadgar up here. Where does he fall in line?
Well, Khadgar became Medivh's apprentice during this time, and he was kind of sent to spy on him a little bit, but he uncovered that turns out that things aren't quite as they seem here, because Medivh is acting like he's trying to protect Azeroth from these invading orcs, and they're just learning what the heck these things are. They've never seen anything like them before. At first they thought they were probably mutant trolls, but no, they're an entirely different race. And then it turned out that Medivh seemed to know a lot more about these orcs than he was letting on. It's like, so he just kind of does some investigation and eventually learns that, turns out that my boss is actually possessed and he's the one who caused all of this. Oopsie! So that all comes in a little bit later. But Khadgar was at this time Medivh's apprentice and just kind of beginning his investigation, so to speak. And he befriended another frequent visitor of Karazhan, Garona Halforcen, who is actually half orc and half Draenei, back from in Azeroth. She was basically mentally enslaved by Gul'dan. He had powerful magic that shackled her mind, forced her to do whatever he wanted her to do. So she was like one of his top spies and assassins and all of that. And so she was, but she also really hated him because she was a slave. And so she just kind of hung around a bit. Gul'dan let her do that because he got information that way. She preferred being around Karazhan and Medivh and Khadgar than having to be with her abusive boss. So that's yeah. And so then we can move on to the next slide because this is all going to come to a head here.
Well, I've got where does the Kingsbane fit in?
So what happened was this is what we call the first war. The first war between the orcs and the humans, and the first versions of the Alliance and Horde in a sense. So at this point, the Alliance was literally just Stormwind, and the Horde was literally just these orcs. They would grow over time. And what happened was that Anduin Lothar was one of the ones to encounter the orcs, and he was promoted to be the king's champion. So he was basically in command of all of the forces of Stormwind, all of the Alliance forces. And so yeah, he is a really big deal here. He is the leader at the time, and makes me really wish that people would play his card more, or that it was a better one, because this guy deserves to be remembered like this. Unfortunately, people don't seem to think very much of the card. But yeah, so there was various military campaigns that you play through in Warcraft 1, even though that game isn't very story focused, and so you don't really know what's going on inside, as Nate mentioned a little while ago, because you played Warcraft 1 and 2, right?
Oh yeah.
And so this is the story that happens in the very first game, Orcs and Humans. And the way that it ended was Garona was working with the Alliance because, like I said, she really hated Gul'dan and the Horde and all that. And she was trying to mentally resist all of his control. Unfortunately, she kind of snapped. She lost control right when she was talking with King Llane, and she Gul'dan was like, kill the king, and she's like, no, and then she just broke, and she was crying as she did it because he was her friend at this point. Oof. But she took out Kingsbane, which is why it's called Kingsbane, or the Kingslayers, and slayed the king with it.
Just a little light regicide, no big deal.
And then just escaped in the middle of the fighting. This had a really big impact on Lane's young son, Varian, who happened to be right there and saw his dad's orc friend kill him, and that forever biased him against orcs. He would always suspect that they were going to betray him because, these things are impressionable when you're a kid. It didn't help matters that while they were retreating, because this just kind of, you kill the leader, it lowers morale. That allowed the Horde to conquer Stormwind. They just completely burned it to the ground and all that. And so you have that they're trying to escape, all the citizens of Stormwind. And Varian's mom happens to die while they're trying to do that. So, yeah, what a great day. You lose both your parents, one after another, thanks to the Horde.
Is Varian Batman?
Only if we can draw. I suddenly have a strange desire to see fan art of Varian as Batman and Gul'dan as the Joker. I don't know why, but you just suddenly put that desire in my head randomly.
I'm sorry, and you're welcome.
So anyway, yeah, we actually have an image on one of the slides of the flee from Stormwind, which was led by Anduin Lothar as the commander. Yep, you can see he's there, and they just all sailed away and retreated to that northern kingdom of Lordaeron that I mentioned earlier. And there, because, see, the thing was that Stormwind had long been isolated, which was why no kingdoms came to their aid when they were fighting the Horde, when their city was being demolished. Part of that was because, well, basically, You know, have you guys ever known, or maybe even been, that kid at school who's on the shy side, but everyone misinterprets it that you're really snobbish, and they don't want to have anything to do with you because they think, oh, he thinks you're too good for him? That was kind of the reaction that the other kingdoms had to Stormwind. Because they were like, you never wanted to hang out with us before. Why should we come to your aid now? Like, you're probably just blowing this whole thing out of proportion. What you're saying, these orcs from another world are attacking you. You're probably just exaggerating things. I know that you're just dealing with rebellious peasants, aren't you? That's the only problem. Oh, by the way, your religion is stupid. So we're not interested in helping you. That was basically their reaction.
Wow.
Also, we happen to have the little thing of Deathwing being taking on the disguise of human form as a noble who was just kind of convincing them that he was a noble from Stormwind, and yeah, this was all they're just blowing things out of proportion. So you had a bit of evil dragon influence in there too, but it was also just selfish politics on the part of the other kingdoms. But now that all these refugees are pouring in, and you have a ton of eyewitnesses, they're like, oh, maybe we should have listened. And all of these orcs might be coming for us now. What should we do about that? And so we have a couple images of on our next slide or so here, of what became known as the Council of the Seven Nations, which was where the Alliance of Lordaeron was formed. This included the leaders of kingdoms. Antonidas was the leader of Dalaran, and Gangraymane was the leader of Gilneas, though he wasn't a Worgen at this point, but that's what's in his card, so we're showing it here. That happened a lot later, and again, it's an entirely different story that we can talk about another time.
He's wearing the same outfit.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to recognize him by his that gray and gold cloak, and there, of course, is Antonidas in the same outfit. So those are easily recognizable. And then I assume that's Anduin Lothar in the middle, right? That kind of looks like him. And
the guy with the gray beard. Then the guy with the horns, his name is Trollbane, and he was a member of a very few noble houses that were too stubborn to leave Strom, and they just kind of stayed in the crumbling capital in what became known as the Arathi area, named after the Arathi Empire. And so he was from that area. And then we also had a couple other kings. We had Grand Admiral Dalen Proudmoore, who is Jaina's dad, actually.
Oh, he's the one with the admiral kind of jacket on. Yeah. Yep. With the black hair. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And so we have just a couple of bunch of different leaders from there who are spending a long time arguing about, should we unite against this? Is it worth the investment? They had a lot of arguing. It's politics, I cover small town politics right now, and people can spend hours debating on whose responsibility it is to move a pile of dirt. I kid you not. True story. And so you can imagine all of these kingdoms, they're spending a really long time doing this. But they are rallied by Turalyon. Turalyon is a priest at this time. Paladins hadn't quite been invented yet, so he's just a very high-ranking, influential priest here. But he gets up and he rolls really well on his charisma score and gives this great speech about how if they do nothing, they will be remembered by history as the indecisive kings who were destroyed by their own ineptitude and unwillingness to cooperate with each other. And he literally has Orphan Varian up, and he's like, do you want all of your kids to end up like this guy right here? And so they all decide to form the very first official alliance, the Alliance of Lordaeron, which is the uniting of these human kingdoms all together, and they are going to go and combat the Horde when it comes for them. And then we have the Second War, which is in the second Warcraft game, but none of that really involves Stormwind, so we're just going to skip over it, because Stormwind wasn't rebuilt until after the Horde was defeated at the end of that war, and they got chased back beyond the Dark Portal, and the portal was destroyed, though it would be reopened later, and then they decided, okay, you know, some of the Stormwind nobles are staying up in Lordaeron because, well, they don't want to go back to their old ruined home. There's just too many bad memories there. But others like Varian do go down, and they rebuild it. And Turalyon crowns Varian as from Prince to the King and gets him set up with a bunch of nice, advisors and everything to get him set up and on his feet. And Varian eventually marries his queen in a politically arranged marriage, which they initially really hated each other because of it, but then it became a very strong affection. Her name was Tifton. She was known to be very beautiful and very kind, and so that there was a lot of work in the rebuilding of Stormwind. Unfortunately, black dragons became a thing. You guys remember what I said, that Deathwing took on human form and he was meddling in things beforehand? Well,
Yes.
he wasn't through yet. As a side note, all dragons can take on a humanoid form of the moral races. They can be whatever they want. They just kind of, it's based off of their personality, what they tend to transform into. And yeah, exactly. Rito is a treasure hunting human. For whatever reason, he decided to be that. But anyway, so Deathwing takes on the guise of the noble Lord Prestor and does a lot of influence there. And he also brings along his daughter, Lady Katrina Prestor, who is actually his dragon daughter, Onyxia. And I kid you not, this is literally in the lore. Onyxia said to another dragon once that the reason she chose the form she did was because it was one that quickened the hearts of men and made them easy to manipulate. Yeah, she basically pulled an Ursula and was like, I am going to be the sexiest human lady that I possibly can because it'll allow me to get a lot of political power because hormones. And she became a noble of the court with a lot of influence as Varian was growing up and taking on more of his authority and stuff. One of the ways that she managed to pit things against each other, she would often really work to influence that forces were not sent to areas where the Black Dragons were doing stuff. Like her brother Nefarian, who you may also know as Lord Victor Nefarious from the Black Rock Mountain. That was his human guys.
I didn't know. I didn't know that they were brother and sister. Okay.
Yep. Here's the thing about dragons is that all of the dragons in a dragon flight are the children or the consorts of the aspect. Sometimes both. Don't think about it too hard. So yes, basically every black dragon was either mating with or a child of Deathwing. Onyxia and Netharian were brother and sister, and they just kind of leaned into that for the whole human disguise thing. Like, oh yeah, we're a noble family that happens to be very manipulative and happens to want to divert all military forces away from anywhere where the Black Dragons are doing stuff, because they viewed humanity as the greatest threat to getting their Black Dragons ruling the earth and all that. So they decided to do things through political manipulation. One of the things that Katrina Prestor did, was that the Stonemasons Guild had been one of the chief forces in rebuilding Stormwind. Like, they spent a lot of time working on rebuilding an entire city that had been destroyed by the Horde, and it was time for them to be paid. The nobles didn't want to pay them. They wanted to pay them a very small amount. While the Stonemasons Guild decided that they wanted to increase their demand because they were starving. And she played both sides against each other, constantly convincing them to dig their heels in and not give in. Varian was trying to be compromising about stuff, and she kept on trying to influence him, but he was too strong-willed for her, even with her magic. And so eventually she managed to convince the nobles that they were just not going to pay the stonemasons at all, which resulted in a huge riot. Like a mob throwing rocks and everything. And one of those rocks happened to hit Queen Tifton, and she died. And that threw Varian into quite the depression, which made him a little more susceptible to Onyxia's magic. By the way, the leader of the Stonemasons Guild is none other than Edwin VanCleef.
Oh.
The Defias Brotherhood was founded by those disgruntled stonemasons who decided, you know what? Screw those nobles. We're just going to take what we think we're owed by force. And they became a very great threat to Stormwind, actually, with a very large criminal organization. Yeah, we can see the image here right below Edwin. There's Varian holding his dead wife. And yeah, he's really upset about all this. But he gradually got better because he became very attached to his son, Anduin. And as his love and connection with Anduin grew, his willpower returned, and it became a lot harder for Onyxia to control him. And so she decided that she needed to take really drastic measures if she was going to be able to manipulate Varian. What would you guys do if you're a magical dragon disguised as a sexy human lady noble, and you want to be able to control the king? What would you do?
So I've read the first graphic novel, so I think I know what happens there. So I'm going to recuse myself from this one.
All right.
I don't know. It sounds like a trick question. I don't know if I should answer.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know the answer, but based on the the trailers for all of this stuff, I assume the answer is become his teacher. Influence the the king from within or whatever.
That's close. That's really close. What she did was she orchestrated that Varian would be kidnapped by the Defias Brotherhood and taken to an island. There, she performed a ritual that literally split him into two people. One of them was a weak-willed Varian, just the part of his personality that enjoyed the luxuries of court, the privileges of being the king, and was very infatuated with Lady Katrina Prestor and would do anything she said. The other half embodied Varian's iron will, the part of him that could never be broken, that could never be swayed. And she decided that she was just going to separate these aspects of Varian's personality into two people, and she'll kill the strong-willed one and have the other weak-willed one be her puppet. And that's entirely reasonable as a political move. But it didn't quite work out as she planned, because the ritual was interrupted by attacking Naga, and the strong-willed Varian managed to escape in the chaos. He lost his memory, and he ended up becoming a gladiator alongside Valeera Sangrelar and a night elf druid named Brol Bearmantle, all working for an orc named Radgar Earth Theory. Stop me if this sounds familiar.
Oh boy.
Yep, so this is where the Valeera Book of Heroes comes in.
Cool.
And now this is getting to be the general setting. We're at that point where the year story that we're in for Hearthstone right now, this is where this is set. Where there's been all this stuff with stuff going on in the Barrens. It's all that same timeline. It's where the story with Valeera is going on. And at this point, eventually, Varian makes his grand return, but it's the weak-willed Varian, and he had been presumed dead. And Anduin had been crowned king, actually, with High Lord Bolvar Foredragon as the Regent Lord, because, Anduin is a little kid right now. He can't rule a kingdom on his own, so Bolvar Foredragon is the one in charge of guarding him. I get a kick out of how this is our third card for this guy, and he kind of combines the aspects of the previous 2 cards we've had of him, because he does hand buffing. That was kind of a thing that sort of happened in his first card, and it's about Divine Shields. This guy is going to eventually become a Lich King, but right now, he's just a really good knight. He's actually not a paladin. They just put him in the paladin class for whatever reason for Hearthstone, but he is Anduin's protector, and when Varian comes in and he's acting different, Bolvar and Anduin are the 2 who most suspect that something is not quite right here. It's like, no, we know this guy. He would never be this much of a simp. Like seriously, this he just looks at Lady Prestor, and she gives a little wink and a nod and says, "Oh no, you don't want to actually fight your enemies. That would use resources." It's like, nope, she's right. She's right. But we'll just stay where we are. We won't go and help any of our or anything. Because she's just trying to weaken everything as much as possible. But then eventually, strong-willed Varian comes along after many, many adventures, which are far too many to recount here, along with his friends, which took an entire comic series that Sheep, you said he read the first version of. I have yet to actually pick up any of those. But can you imagine the reaction that each of these variants have where they come in and they see another version of themselves? Like, how would you...
meme.
Yes, Spider-Man meme, exactly. And each of them is like, I'm the real Varian. No, I'm the real Varian. Like, literally. And then eventually, because they did learn about Onyxia's true identity in over the course of their adventures, and they get her to reveal her true form, and Anduin tries to convince both versions of his dad to stop fighting because, hello, there's the evil black dragon right behind us. Why don't you focus on that? And so she kidnaps him and flies him directly to Onyxia's lair. So at the start of the Anduin Book of Heroes, he just has that little passing blurb, like, my father fought dragons to save me, and they just never address that at all. This is that story that they never mentioned in the Book of Heroes.
What a huge story! Like, I would love to play this. This is so great.
Yeah, it would make a great solo adventure.
Oh
Now,
man!
what happened here is Jaina Proudmoore actually gave both versions of Varian a 2 different special Night Elven blades with ancient magic and all of that. And while the Varians were fighting Onyxia along with their allies, she tried to kill him, but kind of accidentally just ended up fusing them back together, and then also fused the 2 swords together, and that created Charlemagne, which was so you see in his card where Varian King of Stormwind, he has like the 2 swords, 1 in each hand. So that was what it could do. It was 1 sword, but could also split in 2, and that was kind of his signature weapon ever since.
I see. So yeah, okay. It's hard to see, but yeah, there's 2 swords there, one in each hand. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's just kind of charging forward with those, and that is basically the point where we are at in United in Stormwind. I think that right now, obviously since Lady Prestor is still around in the cards, in the trailer, and she has like influence over Anduin or whatnot. This is probably set either before even the Weak-Willed Varian returned, but definitely before she was killed. So that provides you with a bit of context. There's other stuff that happened in the story later on. And this very lovely image from the Warcraft Chronicle book here is after Varian was fused back together and he's just kind of having a bonding moment with his son. Unfortunately, the fusion was a bit imperfect. His low gosh side, his aggressive side, would always be a bit more on top, and so that was one thing that really got in his way with trying to make peace with the Horde, like Jaina was always trying to get him to do at the time. On top of the whole seeing his father murdered by orcs early on in life, and. But yeah, that's the basic story of Varian. Stormwind doesn't take a center stage in lore that much more. It was burned down by Deathwing during the Cataclysm, so there was a lot of destruction for all of that stuff, and then eventually was rebuilt again.
Just looking at the pictures here, like Deathwing is huge. Like, like the head is like the size of the whole giant castle. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, I mean, without going into the Cataclysm, so what Deathwing is getting revenge on killing Onyxia?
Deathwing is acting as an agent of the old gods in order to bring about the end of all things, the Hour of Twilight, which we'll get into a little bit later, actually, when we talk about Darkbishop Benedictus. But yeah, so basically he could have destroyed all of Stormwind, but he just kind of wanted to destroy enough of it that would freak them out, so that they would, well, we'll get to that a bit later on, actually. But yeah, so currently at this, where we are in the Warcraft game and story right now, Varian died at the hands of Gul'dan from an alternate timeline. It's a long story. During an invasion with the Burning Legion, and Anduin has now been the king for a while, and he's always been about peace, so he's really trying to figure out how to balance his responsibilities as a king, that sometimes you do need to go to war, with his priestly, peaceful side. Varian was always trying to get him to be a warrior. It took a really, really long time for him to accept that peace was actually okay, and that his son just wasn't a total wimp. Anduin liked being around Prophet Velen, and was always looking for the peaceful way out of things to resolve conflict. He's all about healing and that stuff.
Yeah.
And Varian just did not see eye to eye with that sort of thing for a while. They grew apart for a period of time, but eventually they had some real nice father-son bonding moments. And
hey, can I ask a real quick question?
Yeah.
So we have Varian Wrynn is the dad, right? King Varian. The son is Anduin Wrynn, our priest hero.
Correct.
Is he named after Anduin Lothar?
That is absolutely correct. I was waiting to see if you would catch on to that, because Anduin Lothar was Varian's guardian as a child. He was, the commander of all the Alliance forces, and so in his honor, he named his son after him.
Cool. Okay, nice. All right.
Another reason Lothar should be a better card that more people use and like, but no.
Good question, Nate.
We did get a little bit in the Priest Book of Heroes how Anduin was saying, like, my dad wanted me to be a warrior so bad, and like I just didn't want to do it. I wanted to be a priest instead, and like they did cover that part of it.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. All right, carry on.
All right, so I think that brings us to the end of our core Stormwind story, but there are a few smaller things for us to talk about. Next on our list is SI7, which is featuring very prominently and the flavor for the rogue class in Stormwind. It's kind of what it appears on the surface. What's your guys' impression of SI7 just from looking at cards and such?
Well, it reminds me of MI5, right? I mean, that's it's like Secret Service type, like spies and,
just with an almost
covert
like
ops or whatever.
Ninja rogue-y slant on it, right?
That's basically it, yeah. SI7 is the Stormwind Secret Service, and the mustached gentleman at the top is Matthias Shaw. He is the leader of it. Sometimes they go a little bit magical, using like stealth and shadow magic in order to disguise themselves, kind of turn invisible. But they also have just like kind of classic like merging James Bond with medieval style that they don't feature prominently in any of the stories, but they're always in the background providing a bit of reconnaissance for Stormwind in this way or that to help them keep an eye on their enemies, especially the Horde, but lots of other stuff too.
And as spies, they would have it no other way.
Exactly. Yeah, they don't want to be known well. That I think it's hilarious. Scab's Cutter Butter now. He's like, who told you I was part of SI7? Like he is so like paranoid about he's kind of like Cogsworth in Beauty and the Beast, like enchanted. Who said the castle was enchanted? As the as the furniture is running around. That's kind of what Scabs his approach with the SI7, and I love it. It's hilarious.
That's great. Hey, really good question in chat. Is Matthias Shaw related to Houndmaster Shaw?
Houndmaster Shaw is a Hearthstone original card, so I cannot tell you that because they didn't tell us that much detail when they created the character. I'd say at this point, make it your headcanon either way. They could be related in some fashion, or could just be one of those things where people happen to have the last name, maybe even grew up in the same town, but it was just one of those cases where there were two families that happened to have the same name in the area. I've encountered that sort of thing in real life a decent amount, actually, so it could go either way.
In the wiki here, it says that that Houndmaster Shaw works for King Gen Greymane, and he grew up. He is rumored to have been raised by a pack of hounds on the streets of Gilneas. So I sort of doubt that.
Yeah, I think they're from entirely different kingdoms, so they're probably not related. Could be some distant relation. Maybe they have a common ancestor that one part decided to go to Stormwind, the other part decided to go to Gilneas. Who knows? Make up whichever you want. There's nothing to contradict it right now. Whatever story you like best.
Like the Bagginses and the Sackville Bagginses.
Pretty apt, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Well, yeah, having the kind of James Bond spy theme makes sense now with like the new quest lines and how you get the spy gadgets, and so that's pretty cool. And maybe I'll ask you later, but it seems to me like if they're going to go down this SI7 route, that Matthias Shaw would seem like a really cool legendary rogue card to get in the mini set. Like, just saying.
He is on my list of characters that should be rogue legendaries. He's pretty high on it, actually. So, yeah, that's... we can talk more about theories for mini set later. That could play a part.
Yes.
But
right,
yeah,
we'll get
to that later on.
All right, so we have then the Church of the Holy Light, right? Or is there more SI7?
Nope, that's Church of the Holy Light is our next topic here. And
Holy Light.
That's actually a really good impression.
It was.
Wow.
So, the Church of the Holy Light is had influence from Lordaeron. Lordaeron was really where the Church of the Holy Light was strongest, but it made a pretty strong presence down in Stormwind with, you could essentially say missionaries or whatnot, especially during the First War, when they were clerics who came down. It was really necessary to heal the wounded soldiers and whatnot. They kind of grew in popularity, established their headquarters was at they had the Cathedral of the Light and the Stormwind, but they also had Northshire Abbey, thus Northshire Cleric, which happens to be the starting zone when you make a human in World of Warcraft. And you play through areas outside Stormwind like Elwyn Forest, and a lot of the first enemies that you fight in that area when you make a human are some of our basic Hearthstone cards, like your Elwyn Boars, like your Kobolds, and we're all like, take candle, and like the Defias Brotherhood later on. So yeah, we've just kind of, and the Gnolls, and Hogger, it became famous because he is one of the first bosses, just like out in the world, a harder quest boss that new human characters would fight on their way to Stormwind. And so all of this just kind of ties in. But for the Church of the Holy Light in general, and this is where we also are going to talk about Darkbishop Benedictus, because he was the bishop. He was the guy who was in charge of the church in that area, guiding souls, and he held up pretty well through the first couple wars against the Horde. He saw that these are some tests of faith or whatnot, but the light will get us through all this. But then the Third War came along, and that was when we had like Kel'Thuzad and the Lich King, and just a whole bunch of nasty stuff involving the undead, and so many things were destroyed. Heroes became villains, and this just kind of broke him. He was like, why didn't the light protect these people from all this horrible stuff? He basically had a big crisis of faith, and that made him a prime target for the Twilight's Hammer cult, which is led by Cho'Gall, by the way. Yep, that card that everybody plays in their Wild Warlock decks. But so what Cho'Gall did as the leader of the Twilight's Hammer was he sent messengers to Archbishop Benedictus, who disguised themselves as penitents seeking guidance. So basically, the whole point was to weaken his faith in the light. They basically go like, I've just been really struggling with my faith in the light, Archbishop. I mean, like, I've even heard that there's this other voice that's opposite light called the Void that a lot of people say is, really big and scary and evil, but they say, it would never abandon its followers. It's really powerful. Isn't that horrible, Archbishop? And so, they're phrasing it like it's something that's bad, but they're really secretly trying to convince him of it and just open his mind to the possibilities. And he's like, I've heard of shadow magic. I always figured it was evil and you should never touch it, but maybe it's not so bad after all. He started to become very much a moral relativist. It's no good. There's no evil. And then that allowed the old gods to appear to him in his dreams and show him a vision of the end of all things, the hour of twilight that Deathwing really wants to bring about. And in his mind, which was rather twisted right now, the Archbishop didn't see this as something horrible. He's like, wow, this is the way the universe is supposed to be. I've been fighting against it all this time. Serving the light and trying to heal people. No, I've been doing it all wrong. We need to destroy everything, and then, we'll fight against the light, and then I'll be the master of my own destiny. I'm totally not being mind controlled by old gods. And then he became a leader in the Twilight's Hammer cult. He still publicly kept his image as the Archbishop. Through sheer willpower, he maintained his ability to wield the light and appear like he was still the really holy guy. But he actually just kept recruiting more and more people to be old god worshipping cultists. And when Deathwing destroyed Stormwind, getting back to that, one of his main goal, why he didn't just destroy the entire thing, he just wanted to make enough people depressed that they would run to the Archbishop for consolation. And it just so happens that results in them joining Deathwing's side. What do you know? And see, that's the story of what Darkbishop Benedictus is going there. After Cho'Gall was killed by adventurers in a Warcraft raid, he decided to take up leadership of the Twilight's Hammer cult. He threw off his disguise as the Archbishop and just became known as the Twilight Father, and led the cult for a while until he was eventually taken down. So that's in Darkbishop Benedictus. You can see he's still he has the bishop's hat or whatnot. The Archbishop Benedictus that we got back in Frozen Throne is more of his Twilight Father stuff, where he's just kind of thrown away all pretense.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because he still looks pretty evil in the first card.
Yeah.
I didn't say he was flawless in hiding his evil. It breaks through every so often. you get stressed or whatnot. Your voice shows through, but
And
yeah,
it's kind of thematic too in the original card because, oh, hey, all of these followers of the light, he's converting them into the Twilight cult. So he's taking the opponent's deck and shuffling it into yours. It makes sense.
yeah.
Oh, that's so great. I love that. I love
Actually
that.
has nothing to do with the Lich King at all, and I have no clue why they decided to put him in that deck. But which is why they decided to reprint him here, where he made a little bit more sense.
That's great.
And so yeah, that's the basics of our lore story before we move on to cards that are a bit more gameplay focused. Does anyone have any questions, points for clarification for the narrative?
I'm guessing that the Darkbishop Benedictus is after he's kind of thrown off his guise of serving the light and is kind of embracing the call of the void, and
Yeah, or maybe just kind of what he's doing when no one's watching type of stuff. Like, what he gets up to in his spare time in his bedroom or whatnot. Just like, his mom opens the door and sees him playing with the void. Oh, what are you doing, Mom?
It's actually pretty interesting.
I'm discovering myself.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Hey, what I think is funny here, though, is if you look at these two side by side, it's pretty funny. It is pretty funny. If you look at Archbishop Benedictus as his like holy light version, and then you look at Darkbishop Benedictus, like
he's got the outfit.
The outfit is the same. Where when you look at once he becomes like the evil version in World of Warcraft, like
the Twilight Father.
The Twilight Father, the card art in Hearthstone matches, where he's still wearing his Archbishop outfit. It's just has like changed colors now. But he's still got his little cherub wings, and he's got his big Pope hat and all of his his stuff here. And so that makes sense where he's like in between, and I think it makes sense lore wise as well. Like he hasn't fully gone evil yet. In the public, he's like evil on the down low.
Right. Yeah, he's still in Stormwind. He still has public presence. By the way, at one point, he actually did try to assassinate Varian and Anduin for the Twilight's Hammer cult, but it was thankfully thwarted. That was kind of the point where like he made a public appearance, and he's like, okay, I'm out of here. Time to just go beat the Twilight Father now.
Nice.
So then we are moving on to some cards that are not so much heavy lore characters, a lot of story, but references to NPCs in World of Warcraft that are part of various gameplay features, often very iconic ones. We're starting out with the Auction House, which is basically where players can go to sell and trade various goods. It could be gear that they looted from a defeated enemy. It could be goods that they crafted. It's also where people, my typical style when I play is to save up enough gold, then you can buy these things called WoW tokens, which basically gives you game time, because for some reason there's players of the game who want in-game gold so much they will literally buy game time and sell it to people in the game for gold, basically transferring real money into gold. I don't get it, but hey, I can benefit from it, and I don't have to pay a subscription. But the way you access all this is through auctioneer NPCs, and our legendary here, Auctioneer Jackson, she has just the teensiest bit of story, because at one point there is kind of this really cute thing where her son is bringing her coffee every hour on the hour, because like she's there 24/7 having to manage all of these auctions, and so it's like her son is helping to keep her caffeinated or whatnot so that she's alert and be able to handle all of this. Unfortunately, it was later revealed that she was killed and replaced by a demon of the Burning Legion, trying to infiltrate Stormwind. So unfortunately, she met some sort of grisly fate, but her focus as a card here is, she's alive at this point in the story at least, and is just kind of representing what auctioneers do. Because it's the focus on the trading. Does anyone actually... what's everyone's opinion on this card, out of curiosity?
This is an achievement hunting card.
Yeah.
There it is.
I got it in. I packed it in gold too.
I did as well. I've seen somebody playing it, D-Money Games, playing it in standard trade handlock, but outside of that, I don't think I've seen anyone seriously trying to play Auctioneer Jackson.
Yeah,
I kid you not. Some people who play Warcraft, their way of playing the game is playing the stock market on the auction house, of just buying low and selling high, and that's the main way that they have fun playing the game. For reasons I personally have trouble comprehending, but I'm not a huge economics guy myself, so...
Yeah, well, in Hearthstone, unfortunately, Auctioneer Jackson doesn't really do too much, right? 2 mana, 2/3, we see that all the time, and no tribe, no really good effect. So unfortunately, rip Auctioneer Jackson. Sorry you had to die in WoW,
But you live on in Hearthstone.
Found much of a second life in Hearthstone.
you have not found much of a second life in Hearthstone.
That's funny.
Like your good looking card though, it's nice.
Oh yeah, it's a neat little pose. It really captures like the energy of having to manage an auction. It's going twice sold. They're like, can you imagine having to manage like thousands of players trying to sell things at once?
Oh, that's funny.
Ridiculous Hat could do it. You could be Auctioneer Hat.
He'd be good at it.
Yeah.
All right. So then we move on to our Flight Master, who we've played with for a lot longer than any of these other cards, since he was our free pre-release card. And basically, so flight paths are just ways that you can more quickly get around World of Warcraft without having to move yourself. They are, if you have to go somewhere really far, they are amazing bathroom breaks, where you can just leave it and it's taking you somewhere else. In Stormwind, he is the Griffin Master. So, different areas, Flight Masters might have their own things that you fly on. Like the Horde tends to have their Wyverns. There will be different things in different areas. But the Alliance, their main flying mounts are Griffins that have been domesticated for a long time. I don't think we actually have any lore stories about how they came to domesticate Griffins, which you think would be something really cool and a really big deal. Because, look at these things. To be able to have a stable full of this stuff like their horses, that is impressive. Half lions, half eagles. But no, we don't have any of that so far. And basically, he's just kind of the guy that you click on and you select the flight path of where you want to go in the Eastern Kingdoms area, and you just send on its way. He's really not someone who has any story or who you interact with in any other fashion, but he's a bit of an older model, which is why he has that... early game armor appearance that's not quite the most put together. Looks like he threw together a bad cosplay, but and he has those square glasses, but they just decided to kind of keep it as a unique iconic look and transfer it over into the card. And,
oh my goodness, he looks like a circus what do you call the
Ringmaster?
Ringmaster. Yeah. That's great. That's really funny. But the card art and the game art translates like 100%.
Oh yeah,
it's like straight out of the game. That's really funny, and thematically the same as well. Like, all right, hey, you can travel to these different places. Where do you want to go? And they take different amounts of time.
Yes. And they're based off of just how close those things are to get to. So the Plague Lands, the one that takes the 12 turns, is way up in the north where Lordaeron was. That's what Lordaeron became known as after it was destroyed by the undead and had all the undead plague around, thus the Plague Lands. And so that's why it takes a really long time. That's one of those bathroom break flights. And so that's why it takes 12 turns to get there. It's significantly less for you to get to Ironforge, for example, so where you get the healing brews and whatnot. And I actually forgot what the first place is that you can go that only takes one turn and you get the Adventurer. Does anyone remember what that card option is?
Not offhand, but as soon as I saw it,
It's somewhere really close. But yeah, so that's really fun how that game aspect is just captured in so many ways in that card there.
Yeah,
then
and true to form for the Battlegrounds hero as well. The new buddy there kind of follows the same general ideas with different rewards.
Westfall. Dr.
Westfall,
Fresh reminded us in the
There
chat.
we go.
Yep. Westfall is literally the zone right next to Stormwind
Oh, that
and
makes
Elwyn
sense then.
Forest. It's often like the second place that people will go after. Elwyn Forest was their first zone. They stopped in Stormwind, the capital city, which is kind of like the way a lot the adventurers are doing in the cinematic, where you've been out fighting an adventure for so long, you're kind of exhausted, you're relieved to get into the big city where you can rest up at the inn and restock with supplies and all that stuff. That's how it is in the game for a lot of beginning players. And and then Westfall is often where they'll go right after that. So yeah, that's kind of I just really love how so many aspects of player experience in Stormwind are captured in this game.
Yeah, that makes me really appreciate the effort that they put into making these cards, just to think of the little things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the sort of thing that I always get real excited about in reveal season. I'm like, oh, they brought this part into the game. While you guys are thinking about, what are the stats on this? Is this actually a good card to play with? I'm just geeking out that, they mentioned flight paths and mounts. We'll talk a little bit more about mounts later, but I was so excited that mounts are a thing in Hearthstone. Our next topic here, if I can calm down for a second, is talking about our little references to the guards and the stockades. So the guards are mainly the people. They don't actually do a ton of guarding so much in Warcraft. They are standing around. They are the people who, if you want to find something in this big city, you ask them for directions. You want to find the Flight Master, ask a guard. Want to find the inn, ask a guard. Want to find a place where you can learn some professions or whatnot? Oh man, that's something that I actually forgot about when we were setting up all this to talk about the profession tools. We can mention that briefly, actually. So our little weapons that are the profession tools are just kind of neat little references to things about the crafts that you can pick up, where you can maybe make some armor or make gems or enchantments or various things that can help to improve your gear. And so those are some of the tools that you'll get. And the capital city like Stormwind is often one of the places where you will learn that stuff as well, where you'll first get a trainer and then, gradually start leveling up if you opted to, I'm going to be leatherworking, or I'm going to be a jewel crafter or whatnot. And so that's really cool. That got put in too. Mm-hmm. But for the guards, these are just the guys who stand around 24/7 to be the direction. Like the greeters at a museum or whatnot. So they hand you the map and they go, okay, let's see, the bathrooms are over here. The cafe is over here. That is what guards serve as, for all practical purposes, in World of Warcraft, in Stormwind.
Nice. Okay. And then the stockades, are they guarding the stockades, or?
Some of them are. The stockades are basically the prison for Stormwind. It's actually a place where Khadgar was put once, and that's just a neat little area. It's one of the dungeons that's actually set in Stormwind. And so we have our little references to like Stockade Prisoner and the Entrapped Sorceress. And that's just another little area that's more just kind of a gameplay thing. There isn't really lore of the history of the Stockades, but it's another part of the flavor of Stormwind that I was really excited to see them add in. They've just done a really good job at giving the well-rounded picture of how all this... of what it's like to be in Stormwind through the flavor of these cards, through the amazing art.
So can you get locked into the Stockades as a player in WoW? And if
No.
so, can you escape like the Stockades prisoner?
Unfortunately, WoW is not one of those games that has a justice systems where you can complete crimes and be arrested. It is not Elder Scrolls Online. But that would be awesome if there was. But no, that's not actually a thing.
I think everyone would be in jail.
Oh yeah, it's like someone ganked me to the Stockades.
I guess on the flip side of that, are there any NPCs that are stuck in the Stockades that you can interact with, or are they kind of walled off by the Stockade bars themselves?
Well, the one time you can enter the Stockades, there is a dungeon that is set in there. But we'll talk about that a little bit later when it comes to theorizing about the mini set.
Cool.
Nice.
So, before we move on to talking about the mounts, I just realized that we haven't talked about those statues yet that you wanted to learn about, Nate.
Oh yeah. Let me pull them up real quick because when I was looking early on at the Stormwind art, like the city itself is very iconic. It's very, big turrets and castles and everything is that blue and gold and the lions and everything. But there's these iconic statues in the front of Stormwind. There's like, what is it, 4 or 5 these giant, they're characters. And so my question was, hey, are these, I assume they're like famous characters in the history of the Alliance or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How does that? Where do they sit in the game, and what do they represent?
So these are just right outside the front gates of the city. As you are going in, you are passing under these guys. One of them is Turalyon, actually. Another is Illyria, who you guys know as the alternate hunter hero, before we got more alternate hunter heroes.
And she was Turalyon's wife, right? Didn't they?
Yeah,
Yes? Okay.
Yep.
I remembered.
Yeah. they had a son, too.
And she's Sylvanas' sister? Right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. The other sister is Varian Wrynn, who is the hunter legendary in Dalaran, who is not Oblivitron from Rise of Shadows. And so, yeah, we have all 3 Windrunner sisters in game. But basically, these statues are memorials for when all of these people were thought to be dead. So what happened was, remember I mentioned that the Dark Portal got sealed up, but later it got reopened? Mm-hmm. So when that happened, and there was some other parts, like other missions from the Horde that were sneaking in to steal artifacts from Azeroth so that they could open up portals to other worlds, because, like, okay, Azeroth wasn't really working out, but surely there's somewhere out there we can conquer, right? So they were stealing a bunch of magical stuff from Azeroth in order to do that. And the Alliance decided that, no, we can't allow what they did to Azeroth to happen to any other world. And so an expedition was sent beyond the Dark Portal that was led by a group who called themselves the Sons of Lothar, in honor because Edwin Lothar had recently been killed by the Orc War Chief Doomhammer in Orgrim Doomhammer in a final fight, and so it was a way of honoring his memory when they sent in their expedition. What happened was that this was the part, if you guys may remember, if you go back and rewatch when we talked about Outland, this is the part where the world of Draenor got shattered when they tried to open up all those portals. It tore apart space and time and completely broke the world. And so in order to prevent Azeroth from getting affected by that too, the Sons of Lothar destroyed the Dark Portal but trapped themselves on that side. So naturally, when a group of people traps themselves on the side of an exploding world in a self-sacrifice to protect your home, you assume they're dead, and what do you do to such great heroes? You build huge statues in their honor outside your capital city. Then later on it turned out that, they weren't dead. They say they had either just like disappeared into the Twisting Nether on a crusade against the demons, or were still on Outland. And Khadgar was actually one of them too. He was actually one of the leaders. And so when he later came back, and Turalyon and Illyria later came back, and so they just kind of see these huge statues of themselves. There's even in one of the comics, Turalyon and Illyria are standing in front of it. It was before one of the recent expansions, Battle for Azeroth, and Turalyon is joking like, they may likeness by you, but I think they got my nose wrong.
Yeah, okay, I googled it. It says the front gate is filled with 5 statues: Denath Trollbane, Kurdran Wildhammer, Archmage Khadgar, Illyria Windrunner, and General Turalyon.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Very cool.
So now we can go to talking about the mounts, if you guys like.
Sorry, wait, I had one other thing. It looks like we had notes about trainers.
Oh, yes, I almost forgot about that part. So something that I did mention was that there's profession trainers that you can learn professions from, but there were also class trainers where you would learn your class abilities, your spells, and whatnot. It used to be that was where you would have to go every time you leveled up and unlocked something. You would have to buy, like, that you were paying for training lessons in your abilities. Like, you go to the mage and they teach you how to be a mage and open up portals. You go to the warrior, he teaches you how to wield an axe better or whatnot. In the recent years, you just automatically learn these things as you level up. So class trainers don't really do anything, but it's a nice homage to what they used to do a bit more. So they're not super relevant to gameplay, which is why I kind of almost forgot about them and put them at the end here. But so what we have here for Druid, we have Sheldras Moontree, who's a Druid trainer. Next 3 spells you draw are cast when drawn. I think that's a reference to how, like, you would learn the spells. Maybe that's even a reference to now, like, cast when drawn, that you automatically know them when you level up. Just a guess, but it kind of matches up, even if that was unintentional. And then we have one other trainer. We have a Shaman Trainer, who is a Wildhammer Dwarf. And let's see if I can remember how to pronounce his name. Olnar Hammerbeak or something, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Mm-hmm. This thing, after you play a battle card, repeat that battle cry played this turn. It's kind of the similar about, okay, I'm showing you how to do something, and now you can do it on your own. It's kind of loose flavor, but it fits if you twist your mind enough to be able to fit it all in.
Yeah, the one other card that feels like it should be a trainer is Jace, the Demon Hunter one, because, replay all the fell spells. Oh, hey, I learned this thing. Whether that, comes from the lore, which it doesn't sound like it is, it kind of seems like it fits that same archetype as these other 2.
Yeah, it is the same general thing. We put him in a different category. We'll talk about him in just a little bit after the mounts, because he doesn't really belong in Stormwind, but you're right, he fits the same general... He's acting as a trainer for demon hunters in this card in much the same way that these other cards are.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So, what do you guys know about mounts?
You ride on them.
I know that you can't get them right away, and you got to level up first. That's why I liked to be a shaman, so I could turn into an animal and run faster.
That is correct. Yep, with that Ghost Wolf ability.
Ghost Wolf, that's what it calls.
Yep. Or if you're a druid and you get your shapeshift ability. But so what we have here for most of these, and I'm kind of annoyed that for a lot of these expansions, Hearthstone will have a lot of these cool little gimmick card themes, but they won't do them for every class.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
What we have, they didn't do it for all the professions, and they didn't do it for all here. So the mounts that we do have, for the most part, are the racial mounts that you get in the game. So every race kind of has the one that, in your race's capital city, there's the vendor who was selling these, and this will most likely be your first mount. And so that's what we have matched right here. Starting with the Elec mounts, since Priest is being represented by our lovely Draenei character here. Then we have the Elec mount, which are basically space elephants. They are from the Draenei's original homeworld of Argus, because they're from a different planet. Again, whole other story here, but they're basically their preferred domesticated beasts. And I love how this card, it's really about the bulkiness of, oh yeah, of course you're going to get taunted and blocked when a huge elephant-sized creature is standing in your way.
Space elephant-sized creature.
Yes, space elephant-sized. And pink, too, apparently. I think the flavor text even says something about pink Alex on parade, if I remember
Oh my
correctly.
goodness, that's great. That's really funny. That's great flavor.
Yeah, I love flavor text in Hearthstone. So many amazing references and jokes for all this stuff. And let's see, what's the next one we're talking about? Kodo, yes. Kodos are the Tauron racial mounts. They are kind of like a combination of cattle and rhinoceroses. Basically, they have their horns. They are roaming wild, but the Tauron have many domesticated ones, and of course, especially for a druid, like they're all about the bond with the animals and whatnot. So, also, a Kodo is one of the few animals that is lore-wise big and strong enough to carry a Tauron on its back, because Tauron, even their size of the game models does not do them justice. Lore-wise, they are huge. They are, minotaur size, the size of a cow standing up on its hind legs and whatnot. They would tower over us for actual the way that they are story-wise. That they can't quite do that in the game. That would create some scaling issues or whatnot. Mm-hmm. But so they need an animal like a Kodo who is big and strong enough, like riding a rhinoceros to carry you around. And let's see, its ability is representing it has rush, so it's kind of like that charging rhino feel right there. So another pretty good lore flair match here.
Cool. The next one up is the ram.
Yes, rams are the dwarven racial mount, because the dwarves live in the mountains, and so naturally you need a more sure-footed animal in order to get around the mountains. They also like having them around for their holiday brewfest. There's special brewfest rams. There's actually brewfest Kodos too that you can get in the game at the holiday, which is basically the lore version of Oktoberfest in Germany. They even have pretzels and stuff too. It's a holiday in the game every year. And that's basically it. Dwarves like rams, and so we have, let's see, it gets 2/2 and immune while attacking. So yeah, you can see with the art, it's also kind of going for that whole charging feel, just trying to interpret it mechanically in a different way than Rush.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then we have the horse. Although, there we go. It's when I was doing the research on this, this is specifically a paladin mount. And
that is correct.
It was very interesting. They pulled this art straight off the paladin mount in the game. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting here looking at horses, and it's just giving me all these vanilla horses. I'm like, this isn't quite right. So I typed in paladin mount, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's exactly I'm always impressed when they pull the in-game art and make it the card art. It's just so clean.
Me too.
I love the armor on it.
Yeah, it's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that it's wearing a hat, and by hat I mean helm.
Yep, it's all armored and such. So yes, the horse is the default human racial mount, but paladins always get their own special mount that they can summon that actually changes according to your race. If you are a human paladin, then this is what you get. If you're a dwarven paladin, you get a special paladin ram. If you are a paladin Tauron, then you get a special Kodo. If you're a paladin Draenei, then you get a special Elec. And you also have an ability called Divine Steed that allows you to briefly summon this mount that you ride on. You can do it in combat or indoors, where normally you can't summon mounts in those areas or situations. As someone who has played Paladin for the past couple years in Warcraft, when I do play it, it is a very handy ability to have. So I like that they're referencing that with this noble mount, and Divine Shield is just something that's so key to Paladin. It's literally an ability Paladins have. It's a big thing in Hearthstone with the Paladin flavor a lot of the time, and just kind of that whole "the light is protecting me" type of thing. Just, again, great flavor match for the noble mount here.
Nice. And then the last one we have is the Dreadsteed.
Right. So this one is not a racial mount because the undead racial mount is a skeletal horse. However, warlocks also have their own unique mounts. As a spell that you learn when you reach a certain level, you learn how to summon a Dreadsteed. Now, this is actually in the art here on the card. This looks a bit more like the first version that you learn, which is called a Fellsteed, and it basically just looks like an evil-looking horse. Eventually, when you level up and you get more powerful, once you summon the actual Dreadsteed, they're the ones who are a bit more fiery. They have the horns and whatnot, so you get kind of upgraded versions of them. But apparently, Tamsin Roan, powerful warlock as she might have been top of her class in Skullomance. But according to that art, at least, it looks like she still has a bit of leveling up to do. Then again, the amazing ability of this card, that it summons the Dreadsteed card. I know a lot. Ghoul Daniel literally just laughed as his reaction in the Shibo video. So I take it that a lot of people don't think that this is a very good card. However, the Dreadsteed itself could be representing that, she's leveling up, she went from Fellsteed, and now she can finally summon Dreadsteeds. I'm not certain, but I choose to think of it in that more positive manner.
It used to be okay back in the day, but it's a 4-mana 1/1, and I don't know, you could abuse it back in the day before it got nerfed so that it would not break the interaction with Defile.
Yeah.
It was Defile, and it was also, I think, Grim Patron. Yeah, you could kind of break the game, go on an infinite Defile loop with those.
Oh, just summoning infinite Grim Patrons because you always had something that was getting it to cast again. I get you.
Yeah. So some Warlock decks played it way back when in like Zoo or something, but it's a 4-mana 1/1, so it's a little. It's now what it is I think it was cool when it auto summoned right away, but now it says at the end of your turn, and so it doesn't quite work as well anymore. But anyways, I was just looking up the art for the Fellsteed, and it's like spot on in the picture as well. And so that's interesting though that she sort of levels up, if you will, from the Fellsteed to the Dreadsteed. I like that.
Well, she might have been a max level mage, but then she reclassed into warlock, and so I guess she has to learn those, start from level 1 at that point, I suppose.
That's great. That's really funny.
And so now we can talk a bit about characters that feel a little off in this set, which is Jace Darkweaver and Arathian. And basically the case with these guys is that they don't have anything to do with Stormwind. As I said, Jace Darkweaver is a demon hunter character who basically, for a lot of these demon hunter legendaries, demon hunter hasn't been a class in Warcraft for nearly as long as any of the other classes. And so they haven't really had much time to create a whole bunch of new demon hunter characters that have a lot of story to them. For a lot of these, like Horvath's Bloodthorn, Sun Fury. Just all of them are part of the same initial group of demon hunters who are your companions in campaign if you create a demon hunter. And so they're actually kind of starting to run out of these characters. So either Warcraft will make more, they'll have to branch out a bit more, like what they did, for example, in the Barrens, where they decided to go with Death Knight Pig Guy instead of having another actual demon hunter character there. So they might go in that direction, or they might just make up a ton of Hearthstone original demon hunter characters.
Yeah, like Elise's sister, right? Is all like just, what is it? It's just like pure Hearthstone only, right?
Exactly. Yep.
And what was the other one you mentioned last night? I think it was Stelina's from Scholomance, the demon hunter legendary there. Star student Stelina or whatever.
Yeah, she's a Hearthstone original demon hunter as well. So they'll probably have to do a combination of those. But yeah, the tricky thing is for demon hunter that if they want an actual demon hunter character, odds are it's not going to go with the setting that they have it in. Technically, Jace Darkweaver did visit Stormwind at 1 or 2 points, but he's not core to any gameplay aspects or any lore aspects like the rest of the set is. They just needed a demon hunter character, and okay, he's pretty cool, and he fits in with our whole giving things to spell tribes, because he's kind of the tech guy of the demon hunter group of the Illidari. He used to be a mage, and so he knows a lot about arcane stuff, and he's not a trainer, because demon hunters were introduced after class trainers were super necessary, but what he is kind of the magic expert who, if you did have a trainer for demon hunters, it would make sense to be him. He would fill that role pretty nicely. So he fills that role in his Hearthstone card here.
And then we had one other, the last one being Anatheron.
Right. So Anatheron is a lore character. He is a canon demon, a Dreadlord, a member of the Burning Legion, much like characters like Mal'Ganis. However, he is not really a major front and center type of character. It's like he exists, he has a name, he pops up as a named demon in demon armies a few times throughout the story and the games. But he doesn't really have much story on his own. So what Hearthstone decided to do was take this existing character who has just a bit to his name and give him his own story. So his whole thing with relations with Tamsin and with... Why am I forgetting the name of our Demon Hunter mercenary?
Kurtrus, yeah.
Kurtrus, yeah. That is all Hearthstone original. They're just kind of taking him and making up a nice new story for him, give him a bit of spotlight that he didn't have in Warcraft lore. So again, like, he doesn't appear in Stormwind or anything, but it's pretty cool to see him here. I don't know how useful he'll be or how frequently I'll see him played as a card, but you know that he's going to pop up in the solo adventures quite a bit when we get to Tamsin and such. And I'm excited for that.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Makes a lot of sense.
We did have some questions that we received through the Discord or through Twitter, but it looks like we've got 2 final cards that are not really lore related as much as they are kind of nods to the classic games. That I suppose I could talk about even, or you can, Goliath, either way.
Tell me your experience of the game. I'll supplement if there's anything I know you're leaving out.
Sure. Yeah. So in the original Warcraft, especially Warcraft 2, because Warcraft 1 came early and there was very little to the game. I mean, it's cool, but so the first up is the Peasant, and this is our kind of counterpart to the Peon, but on the Alliance side. And so this is your just ground level unit that builds all your stuff. That line that you hear when you have no mana and you can't play anything, the job's done, like, that's the Peasant. And so this unit, like, they collect your gold and they chop trees and they build buildings. And so, you know, they've been around in all the Warcraft game, Warcraft 1, 2, 3, and it's just your basic ground level unit. But it was cool since we got the Peon last time to get the Peasant. And then I thought it was cute that our buddy Bat Maisel said that they designed this card after him, and in comparing his picture with the card, it's like, oh yeah, they did actually. That's great.
That's nice.
That's incredible.
That's like lore wise, like there's no lore. There's just your like basic building type unit.
Not the greatest educated, but he'll put in a full days of honest work, and that's really all you can ask for,
right?
Yeah.
The other one that we got was a ship from Warcraft 2, the Juggernaut. So this is in our warrior quest line. The final reward is the Juggernaut. That says at the start of your turn, summon a pirate, equip the warrior weapon, and fire 2 cannons that deal 2 damage. This is one of the bulkier like C units from the Horde in Warcraft 2. And yeah, I mean, it's presented pretty well. Like the artwork here is from the manual, and like they pulled the art pretty much straight from it. And yeah, it shoots cannons, and that's what it does. I mean,
Bringing back some memories, man. I miss those ships in Warcraft.
Right? Yeah, it's really cool. And so I mean, just
the whole water element in the game when you had you would harvest the oil off the coast and everything and have to protect those. It's a whole other element of the game.
Oh yeah, it was fun. It was fun. The tankers and the, you know, the carriers, you put the troops in to take them over. Like, it makes me want to play those again. Yeah, that being said, you can get Warcraft 2 and the expansion for super cheap, like on GOG, $5 or $10 or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And you can run on modern computers?
Yep.
Oh, yep.
Oh,
I
nice.
recently played the first Warcraft like 6 months ago. I went back and revisited it, and it runs fine. It's like in windowed mode, like super kind of small. Don't make it fit your whole screen. It might look a little weird.
Yeah, so you can get Warcraft 1 and Warcraft 2 and the expansion, all 3 games for $15. Is the there's a bundle, and the installer like it works for modern computers. So I've just put it in the chat over here, so if anyone's interested. But yeah, no, it's cool. It's good, and it's a lot of fun. So yeah, no, like lore wise, no, it's just a fun kind of nod to the old games. So I like that. But yeah, I think that's it as far as cards go.
Yep, that's all our basics to cover right here. So now you know the basis of what's going on specific story-wise, you know where Stormwind came from, and kind of what its current state is now, and just kind of took the tour a little bit. Which again, this set does an amazing job. It feels like you're getting a tour of all the main key spots in Stormwind.
Born to be wild.